wants to leave then?
I will be leaving.
Okay.
We're going to start right now. 1 second. Everybody get in their spots? You making a call?
They're gonna be separated.
We're beginning. Okay. Good evening, everyone. We have a packed house this evening. Welcome to the City of North Miami Beach's Community Redevelopment Agency's regular commissioner meeting of Thursday, June 25th, 2015. Ms. Camo, if you'll please take the roll for the record.
Chair Vallejo,
I'm here.
Commissioner DeFilippo, Commissioner Smith,
Present.
Commissioner Spiegel, Commissioner Pierre,
Present.
Commissioner Kramer,
Here.
Commissioner Martel.
Present.
We have quorum.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, our first item, we have the minutes for the meeting of December 2nd, 2014, and February 26th, 2015.
Second.
Okay, anyone comments, questions? None? Moved and seconded to approve the meeting minutes of December 2nd, 2014, February 26th, 2015. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that takes care of that. This one might take a while this evening. We have to open the floor for public comment. Is there anyone from the public here this evening that would like to address the commissioners of the CRA?
Is there anybody from the public?
Anyone? Okay, all the public this evening is bashful. No one from the public wishes to address the CRA board, so public comments closed. Our first action item, which is the amending of the TIF rebate program to align with the new zoning changes. Ms. Camo, I guess, or Ms. Bach, I guess, if you want to explain this to us.
This is pretty much the CRA aligning its TIF rebate guideline with the new zoning changes that were passed in March. We have been getting a lot of requests for meetings for potential developers and so on, and a lot of the questions are, how is the TIF rebate formula going to be with the new zoning? So we are just aligning our TIF guidelines with the new zoning changes.
Okay. This is the same list of stuff that we had discussed before, right? Okay. If you would just explain it to us, I guess, again, for the record and for anyone.
If you recall, last fall we actually adopted the new tax increment recapture program, which allows for 50% tax increment rebate on projects as of right, and another additional 25%, which would be a bonus for doing things that are above and beyond. That was how the program was initially adopted. Since then, we have gone through the process of rezoning, and there are a couple of changes that actually kind of go back to the way that we had to change this. The primary thing that we did in the rezoning, specifically within those zoning districts that are also within the CRA, is we created these special assessment zones. Specifically, we have one for infrastructure improvements, infrastructure and streetscape, parks and open space, public and public art. These three assessments now are tied to the ability for any developer to actually get even the 50% tax increment rebate. So basically, you're required to pay those fees just as part of the regular zoning, and once you've paid the fees, then you're eligible, or you will be eligible for the tax increment. The additional 25%, we now actually have more or less a menu of things that need to be incorporated into a project in order to qualify for up to the additional 25%, which could take a developer to a total of 75% of tax increment recapture. And the menu is based on the things that you were discussing in your workshops for the zoning, only we pulled those, of course, out of the zoning code, and now we've put them directly into the grant program, since that's really where they belong. And you have certain percentages that you need to meet in order to qualify for up to the 25%. So, for instance, If you look at the last page, which has this schedule on there, you'll see that if you do green building and you actually build a building that's platinum certified, that you can qualify for the full 25%. However, if you chose to do a green building and you just were going for the basic LEED certification, however, you wanted to provide some on-site public parking, then you could get 10% for the green building and the additional 15% for the public parking, which again would take you to the 25%. So the onus will be on the developer to be able to put together a project that gets them to that additional 25%. But this gives a guideline for the board and for the staff to be able to review and make recommendations on whether they do receive that 25%.
I think it's safe to say all the new developments in the CRA, certainly the first several, they'll have to get to the 75%. They're going to want the 75%. So this fits in perfectly. We'll get the option for more improvements, for the additional public parking. So like if they want to build an extra, they need, say, 5 floors of parking, and they add an extra one that's open to the public, that gets counted. So so this really just incorporates what came out of the zoning right into the CRA rules. But it's not a new policy, it's not an additional burden, it's actually just streamlining it and specifying in advance, so when the folks come in, we're starting to meet with people, we'll say, these are the things you're going to think about providing, and then we'll work with them on that.
Okay. Questions? Commissioner Smith?
No, it's just a comment I'd like to make for the record, Mr. Lorber. You brought up a very good point, that this rebate that we're giving them is not just a gift to encourage people to come to build here, although that's a plus on the builder side, but it gives the community the benefits. In order to get the rebate, you have to give the community the benefits. You don't just get the gift. And that just reiterated, thank you, and I wanted the public to know that was what we worked on.
Anyone else? Anyone else? No? The only comment I want to make really is that this is a just the fact that we passed this. I want everyone to understand, at least my feeling on it is, and has been all along, that bless you, we're starting with this because we are trying to do, as I jokingly referred to in that movie Coming to America, where they drop the rose petals in front of Eddie Murphy when he's walking, is the pioneers, the pioneering developers that come, the first few that come to do something in this zone, we should work with them as much as possible to get them the maximum incentive. I figure that once the trend is established, the trend of success in the area, that's when we can bring this back, and we probably won't need to give so much incentive once a trend is established, and especially once the marketplace, the rents, once the comparable rents are established, that this market is viable, then this place is really going to take off, and at that point we can reevaluate. But I think I like the table. Folks that I've spoken to and staff and discussions, it seems like there's ample flexibility here to make it work. And if it doesn't exactly make it happen, we can always come back and tweak it as we need. But I think it's a great starting point, and let's get it out there so people can start submitting some projects. So I'm all for it. Anybody else? No? All right. Wait, we didn't get a motion, did we? I'm sorry. We went out of order here. We should have had a motion in a second.
Motion to approve?
Okay. Moved and seconded to approve the amending the TIF rebate program to align with the new zoning changes as provided in the description attached. Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No? Okay. All right. So this is effective immediately, right, Mr. Attorney? Resolution? This is in place? Okay. let's get the word out there.
We're going to be bringing ordinances forward in the next month or two
That we will-
to the full commission, the full city council for adopting the other fees associated with the new zoning, the public art and public places, those implementing ordinances, and the city attorney's office as well is working on an ordinance for the cost recovery of the
Okay.
consultant fees as well. So
Okay.
we will have a series of ordinances in front of you in the next couple of months, but all going back to implementing our zoning that we have adopted.
Awesome. Yes, Commissioner.
Yes, because this is not actually a resolution. We just voted on adapting it so that they can bring it forth. Am I correct? The mayor had
Wait,
mentioned a resolution.
Well-
It's not.
But as far as the CRA is concerned, this is now becomes this is the
Amended.
That's correct.
Plan.
I mean, you're both correct.
Right.
There's no resolution, but you've made a motion, you seconded it, and it's been approved once you vote on it. So once you vote on it, it's as far as the CRA is concerned, it's effective.
okay.
Okay.
All right, perfect. All right, we'll move on to the next item, Executive Director's Report. Ms. Garcia?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. We're gonna do a tag team. I'm gonna take this a little bit. Well, I'm gonna talk about the PACE program. As you know, that we have passed legislation that basically removes some of the burden from the funding of the CRA and passes it on to the PACE program as a mechanism for funding that really helps the community. So it's going to give us now more monies in the CRA to be able to take care of other projects. So that is up and running.
Wait, I'm sorry. Could you explain that again?
We passed legislation, which is basically the PACE program.
Which was done by the City Council a few meetings ago.
That is correct,
Right.
unanimously, with working with White Green.
Right.
This is an initiative that started down south, Palmetto Bay,
Sure.
South Miami. We brought it over here. We did it in some areas here in Northeast. We are now part of the Northeast Corridor. So basically, it gives a new alternative to be able to fund projects that are, for example, hardening homes, roofs, windows, doors. So now there's a new mechanism and a new path. So it kind of gives us more flexibility to use more of our monies for the CRA in other areas that we were funding from the CRA that now can be funded
Okay, got it.
through
got
White
it.
Green.
So another tool, okay.
It's
Correct.
another financing tool for the property owner who doesn't have the cash ready match.
All right, no
dollars.
problem. I just thought I missed something about it. Okay, I'm good.
Okay. The development updates, I'm going to have Richard and Rasha discuss. Taylor Park updates, basically what we've done is we've retained the services of Michael Goldstein, which he is the premier attorney in regards to brownfields. We've been working with Miami-Dade County with a goal to accelerate the process where the county gives us the money to be able to clean up Taylor Park. The fact that Taylor Park has been closed since 2005 after Hurricane Katrina and Wilma really is unacceptable, and that's one of the goals that we had. The county has accepted responsibility for the cleanup and the costs of the cleanup, but there's always negotiations with the county. They're just not going to write a check. They're going to want some things from us. So we're exploring all our avenues in regards to what is the best benefit for us, and we'll keep you guys updated in regards to Taylor Park, but working with somebody that we believe it leads the industry in regards to brownfields and really working with the county. But the county has pretty much declared that this park that they have given to us, was contaminated, and they've taken that responsibility. So we'll keep you updated in regards to that.
Okay.
Richard, the development?
Sure. We think that after the zoning passed, the interest has really risen, and we are getting many more phone calls about potential developments than we used to before the zoning. So we've been busy. We have meetings coming up with a person who wants to build on the Winn-Dixie site on 164th Street. The latest thing we saw for that was an 8-story rental apartment complex. and so we'll be meeting with them. I haven't met with them yet, but that would be certainly a welcome development at the site. The Nankin building on 19th has changed hands. There's new owners. They want to build something there in the future. Right now they want to rehab the building, and they may be coming in for a facade grant. I said that perhaps they would change the name of that building. Nobody knows who Nankin is, and maybe it could contain the name NMB, and they are very open to that idea. So
What's interesting about the owners of the new owners of the Nankin building, that they are individuals that are part of the soccer development group. So it's very exciting that the folks from Boca Juniors is who has found a home at Mishcon Park is actually looking to continue to invest in our city.
Did they buy the parking lot or whatever, that next, like right to the east of the building? I don't know, is that part of that deal? You know how like the building and then there's like a parking lot and then there's some small buildings
Rental
next?
apartments, that's separate.
what do you mean, the Winn-Dixie or?
No, I'm
No,
talking
the-
about
the
Nankin
Nankin
building.
It's one.
No, it
No.
does not
It's the
include
same.
the
I'm just
apartment.
curious because it looks, when you look at it, it looks like there was a division there before. It doesn't
Right.
seem to be. I'm just
The-
curious.
The Nankin property has the adjacent parking.
That's in front of the building, like to the south of the building, but to the
But-
east of the building, there's
No,
like
I think
open parking there between that and
there's
the next
some of
apartment.
their parking. They own
That also is
they
there?
own a lot,
All right.
and then it's the apartment. So, and we mentioned that they should get together with the next door neighbor property
Sure.
owner, and then they'd have a bigger assembly, which gets them more flexibility.
Right.
So
Okay.
we'll be talking with them. We've been meeting with Mr. Mackin on West Dixie about a project north of the tennis center. We'll be meeting with the folks from the Tico site next week, I think. And then we just getting constant inquiries from the architects for the harbor and the Keystone Group, and even where the Dean's Gold is currently, and encouraging all those developments to come through, and actually putting them together in one room to work out where the properties come together. There's an association of those properties, you may know, and so we participate in those meetings, and because the whole site really needs to work.
Couple of quick questions. Going north, I've heard rumblings that the hotel, the Hyatt, the Braha piece is getting closer to moving forward. Anything new on that officially?
I have nothing like an application
Okay.
in front of me. We were asked if they could change the mix
Mm-hmm.
of, when you approved it, it was certain number of hotels, certain non-hotels, and within the boundaries of the resolution will be flexible, but their problem is any change that they really want to make that has to come here, they have that group that's suing,
Right,
that's
right.
a problem. So we're going to try to make sure, that they don't have to go through that again.
Does anybody know what the status is on that lawsuit again? Because didn't they prevail already on the future land use change, and then it was the rezoning is the one that's now? I mean, there was a lawsuit at the land use change, and then there was a loss. No, I'm sorry. There was the rezoning was a lawsuit, and then the site plan was a lawsuit, right?
I believe so. I'm not familiar with that. I would have to double check with
Okay.
She's actually handling that in our office.
All right. If you get a chance,
We'll have an update.
I'm curious. Just shoot me an email. I'm sure my colleagues would like to hear, like where that really is.
Okay.
Going south
I got more for you.
on Tico, are they planning to come in with their idea of at least the townhouses now, or
Yeah, remember, if you recall, we had these discussions about what on the Tico site should be the furthest west, right behind the single-family homes. And the way we wrote it, it had some flexibility, but it required that to be low. and they're showing two-story townhomes
Mhm.
backing up onto the single-family homes, which is just perfect
Yeah.
from a compatibility standpoint. Then on the other side of the road, as you move east, I think they're allowed up to 6. I don't know if they're prepared to show us that yet or not, but certainly that first phase, that's what they wanted that to be phase 1.
Okay. All right. Cool. So obviously the vote that we took has had the desired effect. I mean, it's really sending the message out there. Yes, Commissioner Smith.
I just want to point out, now that the mayor has said, and the chair tonight has said about the vote, that Mr. Lorber's comment should put a lot of people at ease. Here, there's one of the largest pieces of property in North Miami Beach that's buildable, and it's available for a 20-story building, and they're building 8 is the request. So I think that the public should be aware that just because the story limit is much greater than it used to be, or much greater than they wanted it to be, however they perceive it, it doesn't necessarily mean something's going to be built to that height. That's number one. And if I have the floor still, Mr. Chair, I'd like to bring back the opportunity to talk about the PACE program. I remember on our matching program with the CRA, one of the applicants came forth requesting money that he had already started and he was doing anyway. So my question is that mandatory that we have that matching program? Or now that the PACE program is there, should we as a body, and maybe the attorney needs to answer this, should we as a body reconsider spending our dollars as a matching program? Or have stronger guidelines? Is there something now that this is incorporated into our city and the businesses have an opportunity to use it? Is there something we should reevaluate?
That's a good question. I guess a lot of it depends. Really, a good staff question is, what is the overlap between what PACE you can apply for and what?
Essentially, the PACE program is, again, it's an alternative financing opportunity for property owners. You can use it for the impact windows and doors, the roof, the AC. And usually, for this fiscal year, we only had one applicant, and it was Mr. Ng. And he used the $25,000 to put impact windows and doors. Whereas he could have used the Y Green program as his match, cash match, to take care of that, and we could say, you will use our dollars for more aesthetically pleasing improvements. So I think that's where we can actually make a better impact, where we're telling them we would like to see a greater impact with our dollars. And if you don't have the cash ready, like he said that, he only had this limited amount of money. He could finance it on his property taxes. He can get the impact windows and doors, the AC, and all the other things that he needed.
And the thing that brings it to mind is if you go down to about 146, 156 and Northwest 7th Avenue, the CRA dollars changed an old strip store. And when you go down there, you almost think you're in South Beach. It was only the facade, but changing the facade and the colors, what the CRA dollars did was take really what the purpose was, blight, and make it look like today, or even the future. So that's why, do we as a body have to do anything on the board to change what we want our CRA funds to go to when they're qualified?
Mr. Zelkowitz can elaborate on that, but I think now that you've approved this program citywide, I intend to send letters to all the property owners along that and advise them of their eligibility and how they can use it. So they can use it for those impact windows and doors, and we are going to be focusing on the aesthetics of it to make it more visible. And again, I think Mr. Zelkowitz had said it the last time, when the applicant comes here, we can impress upon them. We don't have to change the guidelines every time, but we can impress upon them that this is the focus of the board, and this is what we're bringing to you. And then you can vote on it and say, this is what we want. We want more aesthetic pleasing.
I remember Commissioner Spiegel saying on one of the applicants that we could not turn them down because they met the guidelines. So that's why I'm wondering.
We did change the guidelines. We did.
Yeah, but to be what our focus is, to the facade?
Well, we've aligned your strategic plan of cleaner, safer by having this mechanism with the PACE program. Like Rasha said, the $25,000 that we gave for impact-resistant windows would now be $25,000 that could be focused for aesthetics, beautification, for a more beautiful CRA, and now there's other monies, a pot that's available for those impact-resistant windows.
No, I understand all that, but what does our book say? If the book says that they can still get the 25,000 for impact windows, then they come before us. How can we deny?
I think, Commissioner Smith, what it is that if they qualify for it, I cannot say, no, you cannot come to the board. You as the board are the final decision makers. You can say, no, I don't want it that way, and so on and so forth. I think that's where the confusion was, and Mr. Zulkowitz can elaborate on it.
But I remember
Yeah.
that whole conversation.
Again,
do we have to bring
you have certain guidelines.
Right.
Applications filed, they meet certain criteria, they come to you. You are the final arbiters of whether you say yes or no. It's not an arbitrary, capricious situation, but what's happening now is there's an opportunity to be able to influence the grantees more towards what you want them to do, and give them an opportunity to do more with the money and go towards what you want them. If you want to strictly limit, I think the discussion was more, well, we don't want to strictly limit what our funds are used for, because there are situations where we might feel that it's appropriate and approve just the windows because we think this building needs them. Or they've done the facade themselves previously, and you're going to help them with another improvement. So we've gone back and forth on these guidelines, I think, a number of times, and I think the idea was to leave them the way they were, to give them the opportunity. Again, you can say no. I mean, it's a grant. It's discretionary. It's nothing. There's nothing in the guidelines or your bylaws or state law that says you have to give somebody a grant just because they apply
And qualify.
You can say no.
Let's, you know what, I think Commissioner Smith's onto something, and now that I'm thinking about it, you're refreshing my memory. Didn't we, at one of the prior meetings when we spoke about this, I thought we had said that for staff, when people were coming in, that we don't want to lead them astray either. We don't want to make them think that that's, it's a guaranteed thing if you meet the requirements, and then, they come here and then we feel bad to say no. That staff would do a good job of kind of explaining to people the facts of life of how this works. And that maybe that works into this conversation that, if somebody's coming and says, oh, I want to get, these windows. Well, you have this other program that can get it for you as well. And we're trying to steer people that way. You can apply, but remember, it is, it's not guaranteed. You have to get the votes, and you have to convince the CRA board that this is a valid use of those dollars.
Mr. Chair,
Is that correct?
in our guidelines, currently it says that they have to go to the community development department and work with staff on their application for presentation.
Right.
It is currently in
Okay.
there.
I knew there
That
was a
is-
staff guidance
Yes,
here.
There is. It's
type of
always
thing.
there. I think the issue is, once an applicant comes in, and I think that was a discussion, if they qualify, we may not like what they are presenting, but as staff, I can't say you're not going to get it or whatever. We do tell them it's at the the board makes the final decision.
But you can have a staff recommendation, much
Yes.
like they do when
Yes,
there's
which
a
we
variance
do.
or anything else.
Which we do.
Mr. Chair, I think the attorney hit the nail on the head. If you haven't, we want to leave ourselves open. If we have an applicant that has spent all their money out of pocket to paint it, to landscape it, to beautify, and the last piece that they have these windows, and we do bring it forward, it still gives you the options. Wow, look how beautiful these windows are going to add to the facade. So it gives you the option.
And in addition, not every property is eligible for white green. You do have to have 10% equity. You do have to pay your taxes. If the property owner bought the property and it's upside down,
Right.
they wouldn't qualify for it. But that's that one eyesore on that strip that we're trying to fix.
Got it.
So
All right.
I think we should allow for the flexibility.
Okay. Wait, I think, Mr. Lorber, were you going to say something? Because this conversation triggered something in my mind. if you're set.
No, I appreciate the input, and at least as long as we're covered and we're not open for anything that's liable, but thanks to the attorney that explained totally it is at our discretion, and it would not end up in something that we would cost us much more than $25,000 at the end of the day. So, no, I'm very pleased. The PACE program wasn't here the last time we went over the guidelines and changed
That was in
them.
February when
Yeah.
we had our applicant.
So we did not have the PACE program, but now it's coming forth, and I might ask the city attorney, even though we don't have a large audience for the CRA, I'm sure that you're going to bring that program forth at a council meeting to explain exactly what that program is to the public.
We like to do it kind of like in a workshop setting, so people, and we are actually have one of the leading articles in the front page of our newsletter that actually talks about the program. So that newsletter is going to go out to all the residents, so it will really explain to everyone then as well.
And you know what would be helpful too when you bring that is videotape it and put it on the web page where people can instantly see it via YouTube or whatever our thing is, so that they can get the full experience.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, Mr. Zelkowitz.
What I was going to say is maybe part of the confusion that we were remembering was that there used to be a two-step process. The grant would be approved by the CRA board, and then after the work was done,
Yes.
there'd be an agenda item that would come back before you where they would seek your approval again now to get paid. And that's where, I had opined that you really can't say no at that point because you approved the grant and they did the work. We've eliminated that step from our procedures and our process. So once you approve it, and it is in your discretion, once the application is submitted, they work with staff. Staff presents to you, they may recommend approval or non-approval, and you all act, then it's completed at that point. You can't come back and get a second bite at the apple and say, now we don't want to pay them.
Okay.
That was where we were having, I think, some discourse about the process.
All right. Perfect. Thank you very much. That was a
Welcome.
good reminder. Commissioner Smith's comments reminded me of two things. One of them is that, at some point, we really need to make some good decisions on this stuff, especially from staff perspective as these people come forward, in the sense that we want to make sure that we don't put, good money after bad in this, and the example being, we see the movement now, right? There's the building on 19th Avenue, there's the Solo building, right? There's the one on the corner of 163, that's coming forward. We've got the Winn-Dixie parcel coming forward. There's a lot of stuff percolating. And I'd hate to see us, invest city dollars in somebody, brand new windows that then, 4 months later gets demolished because it's, some new assemblage or new building is coming. So I think we need to be really cognizant of that. But the other thing that I wanted to bring up, which really this is sort of CRA, sort of city council. So if I step out of line, Mr. Zelkowitz, just press the taser button. But the code enforcement thing, in conversations with several of the people that have been coming around and interested in the city and asking questions and stuff, one of the things that has come up repeatedly has been, gosh, we really want to come and do something here in the area. We see the vision. We agree. We see the vision. But my God, that property over there just is, it's just going to be this terrible eyesore and is going to drag down our rent comps, and that makes it not feasible, or maybe the bank won't lend us the money. So there's been a lot of talk and a lot of the same commentary, code enforcement, the appearance of the other buildings around. Some of it, of course, can be fixed by Y-Green or by our program, but some of it really has to do with, with kind of taking the approach that, hey, the city is spending money on medians and we're fixing up this, and the city is going in this direction, and it's no longer going to tolerate, properties going in this direction. And so that the city, I think, needs to really just, enforce the codes and be a lot tighter on, especially in that CRA area, because believe me, it makes a difference from every conversation I've had with people that are in this business and that are thinking about coming and and investing money, you know, it's the appearance of the buildings around it. They could build the most beautiful building and show us a beautiful picture, but if around it is a disaster, the bank itself may not want to lend them the money because the rent comps don't justify, or they just don't like what's next door. And to a certain extent, some of that we can control it, because there are certain properties out there that, you know, that need a paint job, or they're cracking windows and different things that maybe they've gotten away with, that we just, we need to. And I know we had this conversation, Madam City Manager, and that a bunch of them are being already on. They're already on the radar. They're already being cited or worked with or whatever. I just want to make sure that my colleagues are aware of this. So, Commissioner Smith.
Well, thank you. That is a very interesting topic, because one of my community redevelopment members, and maybe Rasha will remember, they were from Hallandale, and they had an amnesty program. They gave the businesses, we're talking businesses, they gave the businesses their code violations and then gave them 6 months to repair it and eradicate any fines. So I'm just thinking, from what the mayor is, the chair is discussing, that maybe that's something that we should incorporate, that there will be an amnesty program on commercial to get started on, maybe in one area or the whole city or whatever, and then follow up. That was the main thing that he really let us know, that after a month, when they said they were going to do it, they went back to see, did they start it? And they kept following up to make sure they weren't waiting for the 5th month and then do a half a job. So maybe that's something that we should consider in our city as well.
If I may.
Don't let me forget, I think that something similar to that worked with the Winn-Dixie property, but go ahead.
Well, one of the things that we did, and we're going to send out, we had a flyer that basically is giving our residents and our business owners information, and we send it in Spanish, English, and in Creole, in regards to little things that they can do to improve the appearance of their home, of their businesses. We're going to tweak it and send it out again. But as I was driving, with one of your colleagues, and our code and our building director, how about this property? How about that? And we were pulling out every single property. And visually, you guys may see it in a deteriorated state and wonder if we're on it. But basically, every single one of the 17 properties that we looked at were in the code process. Now, one of the things that we were looking at when we were putting together the budget for the CRA is a possibility, and other cities do it, to have a line item for the CRA for a code officer. We can have a code officer paid through the CRA that is basically doing a full court press on the CRA area, and that would be his or her area. So there's a couple of opportunities that we can jump on, and certainly the amnesty, which we kind of have a hybrid of something like that. We give the homeowner every opportunity, every extension, but we'll take a look. You said it was Hallandale Beach?
No, it was Hallandale, and the thing that's interesting about an amnesty program is it has a finish date. That's the difference. It's not an extension. It's not being lenient. There's a beginning date and a finish date. So you looked at 17 properties, and they were already fined. So why, if you were a business and you were fined and had code violations, why weren't they working on them coming before you it was done? And maybe that is the problem, is if somebody's waving in front of them a relief, here's your ticket to be relieved of these fines, maybe, and especially with a deadline. That's the date. And then we're putting a lien.
Interesting thing, I think.
It worked very well for them. Very well.
To look at, and by the way, I remember the Winn-Dixie. Remember when the Winn-Dixie was still standing? That was sort of like one of those deals. I remember we made a deal. If you don't do X by Y, the money goes to demolish the building or something, right? That's how we ended up getting that thing cleaned up.
You want to give him the update on that?
So,
Well, yeah. I mean, the code violation was given, but then I think there was some delay in the demolition because of FPL, and they had to turn off the electricity in a certain way. So we have the ability to grant extensions, as you said. I had another case, a commercial property on the south side of 163rd, where they're in disrepair in the rear parking lot, but later this year they'll be installing a hookup to the sewer. So because they have this sewer project coming, we didn't make them repair the parking lot just to tear it up again
sure.
3 months later. So
That was sensible.
there's a good relationship. We work with each. It's not about fines, it's about compliance. We just want to get to compliance. And so we use all those methods, work closely. The problem with amnesty, like for code violation, we have like our administrative waiver is basically like a light variance. But for certain things involving the engineering or the building code, they tell me that they don't have an amnesty. It's more like we have to work with the property's owners to get them into compliance. Sometimes it's upgrades to the building that they have to do. There's obviously water and sewer issues that you just can't have amnesty for. So sometimes the problems are more complicated, but still a long-term approach, working with owners, understanding the time frames, the financing difficulties, trying to put them together, advocating for them at the county when the county is involved with the health department or DERM. And that's how we've been
It's
doing
like
it.
any program. You could also, if I may, Mr. Chair,
Yep.
you could also, in your ability to qualify for the amnesty program, there could be exceptions if it's no fault of your own, if it's a safety, it's whatever. I'm just saying because you said 17 properties and because what the chair is saying is pertinent to people spending money. They're not going to come here and spend and redo and rebuild when they have to drive past this to get to this. They're not.
Well, you know what? Why don't we just do this? You guys, it seems a sensible thing to look at, and I saw you making notes to check it out, and we can always have a discussion about it at a future, or you guys can report back to us. So, all right, that was the last of our information. Is there anything further, Madam Executive Director?
What we'll do, I'm going to bring Candido, our Director of Code and Building, to give you a year-to-date update in regards to where we're at, in regards to liens, compliance, some of the game plans and some of the hybrid, but also go back and check what Hallandale Beach is doing and see how we can apply it here.
You can bring that to our alter egos as city council at at a workshop or something, or pre-council presentation or something, or your manager's report if it's brief, whatever. Since that would apply, citywide, of course. Okay. Is there anything further? If not,
Second.
move to adjourn. All in favor? Aye. Okay, we're adjourned.
Thank you, audience. for
Oops, I
coming.
forgot to remind everyone watching, our next CRA board meeting is July 23rd at 6 p.m. July 23rd at 6 p.m. Thank you. Thank you all for coming. Have a nice night.